Sounds of crashing thunder, lightning tearing across the night sky, wooden beams creaking under pressure, waves roaring louder than cannon fire. Have you ever wondered what pirates truly feared out on the open seas? You might think it was the Navy's cannons, rival crews, or even starvation. But no, the deadliest enemy wasn't made of flesh, steel, or gunpowder. It was the sky itself. One single bolt of lightning could kill half a crew in a heartbeat. One strike could shatter a mast, set sails ablaze, or even toss men overboard as if they were nothing more than driftwood. And yet, these same pirates, aboard fragile wooden ships filled with ropes, tar, and gunpowder, still sailed headfirst into storms that would terrify even the bravest sailors today. So here's the burning question: how did pirates, men with no modern technology, no electricity, no lightning rods, survive nature's most violent weapon? And why didn't more of them end up roasted beneath the storm? Stay with me, because the truth will shock you. What you're about to discover is a survival story more terrifying, more ingenious, and more human than anything Hollywood ever dared to show. The thunder fracas as if splitting the heavens. A flash of light reveals pirates scrambling across a slick deck. When storm clouds rolled in, seasoned pirates knew one rule better than any treasure map: get low, stay alive. The moment lightning began to flicker across the black sky, the crew didn't waste a second. They scrambled below deck faster than a starving man reaching for food. The lower deck transformed into a sanctuary, not a comfortable one, but a desperate refuge. Imagine dozens of men huddled together in near darkness, the air thick with sweat, rum, and fear, while the deck above them shook with the fury of 1,000 storms. But why did it work? Why did hiding below deck give them a fighting chance? Because lightning always seeks the highest point, and on a ship, that meant the mast, the rigging, or the fool who dared to stand tall above the planks. By ducking below, pirates placed solid layers of wood between themselves and the storm's deadly fingers of fire. Yet survival wasn't as simple as hiding. Pirates lived surrounded by danger: swords, pistols, iron chains, brass buckles, even their earrings. Every shiny scrap of metal turned into a death magnet when storms raged overhead. A single careless touch could transform a pirate into a human lightning rod, and so experienced crews had a chilling piece of advice for newcomers. If it's shiny, don't touch it. This wasn't superstition. It was life or death. Some pirates took the warning so seriously that they stripped themselves bare of jewelry, buckles, and weapons the moment storm clouds gathered. The fierce, flamboyant pirate with gold rings and silver chains suddenly transformed into a plain, ordinary sailor, not out of modesty but survival. Those who ignored the rule learned in the cruelest way imaginable. Lightning could travel through the handle of a sword, through a belt buckle, through the tiniest ring on a finger, leaving burns that seared flesh for weeks. Imagine the pain of electricity scorching a path across your skin, carving patterns that no doctor could heal. Many men never forgot their scars. Some never lived to tell the tale. But the cleverest pirates knew that lightning didn't just burn. It could blast a man off his feet, hurling him across the deck like a rag doll. For that reason, some tied themselves to wooden beams using rope, never chain. Rope wouldn't conduct electricity, but it would keep them anchored when the storm tried to rip them away. Even above deck, some pirates had no choice but to remain. Ships couldn't simply drift aimlessly. Sails had to be lowered, ropes secured, barrels tied down before the wind swallowed the vessel whole. For those unlucky enough to face the storm on deck, survival meant crawling. Yes, crawling like animals across the planks, keeping themselves as low as possible, avoiding the curse of becoming the tallest thing on the ship, because on that deck, being tall meant being dead. Certain hiding spots even became legendary among crews. The space behind water barrels, low and far from rigging, was said to be the safest refuge. The galley, however, was a nightmare: pots, pans, and knives everywhere, each one a glittering invitation for death. Pirates whispered that only a fool would hide in the galley during a storm. The smart ones knew better. It wasn't about bravery, and it wasn't about cowardice. It was about knowledge. The kind of knowledge passed down not in books, but in scars and whispered warnings. Surviving lightning was never luck. It was instinct, preparation, and the sheer will to live. But here's the real terror: avoiding lightning strikes was only half the battle. The storm was far from over, and the ship itself was still a giant target floating in the middle of nature's fury. Music builds, tension rising, the storm worsens. A mast creaks, sails whip violently. The first order of business: lower the sails. A tall mast with full sails might as well have been a giant hand raised to the heavens, begging to be struck. Pirates dropped their sails as quickly as possible, reducing the ship's profile against the storm. But in doing so, they invited another danger. Without sails, they lost the ability to control their ship. Waves tossed them like toys in a bathtub, threatening to smash them into rocks or overturn them entirely. This was the cruel choice pirates faced: lower the sails and risk losing control, or keep them raised and invite lightning's wrath. Most seasoned captains chose the middle path, lowering everything they could, while keeping just enough canvas to steer. It was like riding a wild horse with one hand tied behind your back. Impossible for most, but survival demanded it. And here, pirates revealed their greatest trick, something so counterintuitive it sounds like madness. They soaked their ropes and sails in water. Yes, water. On a wooden ship surrounded by waves, they deliberately drenched their rigging, turning it into dripping strands. At first, it seems insane. Water conducts electricity, doesn't it? Why would they risk it? But here's the genius: when lightning struck wet rope, the charge spread across the surface, dispersing safely into the ocean instead of concentrating in one deadly blast. Wet rope could be the difference between a minor shock and a funeral pyre. At that moment, the ship itself became a living experiment in survival. Every choice mattered. Every second counted, and one mistake, one wrong move, meant the ocean claimed another crew for its depths. Her thunder explodes, cutting to silence. The narrator pauses. And yet the question remains. What happened when lightning finally struck the ship? Because make no mistake, it did. And when it did, the pirates faced their most terrifying challenge yet, and the storm rages louder, sails whipping, the mast groaning like a dying beast, a blinding flash rips across the sky. And then it happens. The moment every pirate dreads, lightning slams into the ship with a crack that splits the night in two. The world turns white for an instant, and the sound is not thunder, not cannon fire, but something deeper. A violent roar that rattles bones and makes the heart forget to beat. Men are thrown to the deck. Sparks leap across the rigging. The mast shudders as if struck by an invisible hammer. And then, the smell. That sharp, unmistakable stench of burning tar, singed rope, and scorched flesh. This is where survival becomes a race against time. Because lightning doesn't just strike once, it comes again, and again like a relentless predator. Wood splinters, men screaming, buckets clattering. The first danger fire, a single spark on tar-soaked ropes, or sails coated in pitch, could turn the entire ship into a floating pyre. That's why buckets of seawater were always kept ready. Crews didn't wait for orders, they lunged for the buckets, hurling water onto flames before they could spread. Every second mattered. Too slow, and the storm claimed not just the men but the ship itself. The second danger damage to the ship's bones. Lightning could split a mast in half, tear holes through planks, or fry the rigging so thoroughly that sails became useless. Pirates became makeshift engineers in the middle of chaos, binding cracked masts with spare wood and rope, patching sails with whatever canvas they had left. Imagine repairing the skeleton of your only lifeboat while fire and lightning tried to destroy it around you. And then, the third danger, the crew themselves. When lightning touched metal, a sword, a chain, even the tiny clasp of an earring, it carved scars into flesh. Burns ran like rivers across skin. Bones fractured as electricity launched men across the deck. Some were hurled into the sea, never to be seen again. Heartbeat slows, whispers, the sound of rain pounding on wood. Pirates who survived the strike often spoke of it like being kicked by an invisible monster. You felt it in your chest, in your teeth, in the marrow of your bones. Some collapsed instantly, unconscious. Others staggered, their skin marked with jagged red lines, lightning's signature tattoos. The ship became a battlefield. Men's fire hissed. And yet, order had to be restored. Captains shouted themselves hoarse, driving their crews to act not like drunken thieves, but like soldiers. Because in that moment, hesitation meant death. Her lightning flashes, silence, then a whisper. But here's where pirates revealed their brilliance. They had a weapon against the sky. Without modern lightning rods, they built their own crude defenses. Wet chains, thick ropes, even buckets tied together. These were dangled over the sides of the ship, creating primitive grounding lines. When lightning struck, the charge found its way down into the sea away from human flesh. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. More than once a ship was saved because some clever pirate remembered to toss wet chains overboard before the storm reached its peak. And still they weren't safe. Not even close. Because lightning storms weren't just about the strikes. They were about survival after. Key lantern flickers, men coughing. The creak of broken wood, burned ropes had to be replaced in minutes, or the sails would collapse. Splintered planks had to be patched before the sea poured in. Injured men needed tending, rum poured on wounds, strips of cloth tied to charred flesh. Crude, painful medicine, but it was all they had. And all of it had to happen while the storm still raged overhead. Now picture this: lightning still flashing, thunder still shaking the heavens, waves pounding the hull like a drum, and a crew of desperate men racing against time to keep their ship alive. Every task a gamble, every second a prayer. Soft, haunting pause. This is why pirates drilled their crews like soldiers. They practiced these routines in calm seas, because when the storm came there was no time to think, only to act. Whistles, hand signals, silent gestures through the chaos. It became a deadly dance, each man knowing his role, each mistake paid for in blood. And yet, even the most disciplined crew faced one truth: sometimes the storm could not be beaten. A thunder crashes low like a giant's Gralpy ship split apart. Fires consumed everything. Men were lost, dragged screaming into the waves. And the survivors, they spoke of storms as curses. Some swore the lightning was guided, as if the heavens themselves were hunting pirates, punishing them for their sins. Others whispered that certain captains mails with dark powers, trading souls for safe passage through storms. Superstition or not, the fear was real, and it clung to every sailor who had ever seen the sky turn white with fire. A music softens, voice lowers. If you're still sailing with us through this dark tale, raise your flag, and hit that subscribe button. Join the crew of Dead Men Tales where legends never truly die. Her pause, a final thunderclap. But here's the secret most won't tell you. Surviving lightning wasn't just about drills, or luck, or even courage. It was about listening to the sea itself. The change in the wind, the sudden silence of birds, the metallic taste in the air before the strike. The pirates who lived longest weren't always the strongest, but the ones who paid attention. And when they lived to tell it, when the storm finally passed, and the sea calmed again, they carried with them stories burned into memory, scars etched across their skin, and the knowledge that they had stared into the heart of the storm and survived. Her soft fade out, waves calm, thunder fades into distant rumble. Could the storm softens, not gone, but quieter. The ship rocks gently now, like a beast catching its breath after a violent attack. And when dawn came, the sea was unrecognizable. The storm clouds retreated, leaving streaks of pale light across the horizon. The ocean that had tried to devour them hours before now lay eerily calm, as though nothing had happened. Yet the ship bore the scars of the night, blackened planks, charred sails, and faces hardened by survival. For pirates, this was the true cruelty of lightning, not just its violence but the silence that followed. A waves lapped softly, faint creak of timber. Men would stumble from the lower decks, eyes wide, skin marked with burns that looked like twisted branches of a tree. Some limped, some carried others, some simply stared at the horizon with hollow gazes. They weren't the same men who had gone below when the first flash split the sky. Because lightning changes you. It leaves behind ghosts, not the kind that haunt ships, but the kind that live inside memory. A sudden clap of thunder years later could still make hardened pirates flinch like terrified boys. And yet they sailed again. Always they sailed again. Why? Because the sea offered treasure, freedom, glory, and no fear, not even fear of the sky's fire, could chain a pirate's will for long. A lantern flickers. A single breath, but among sailors whispers spread, that lightning storms weren't accidents of nature, that they were warnings, punishments. Some claimed they saw faces in the flashes above the sea, grim figures, eyes glowing white, as though the spirits of drowned men were striking from the heavens. Others swore that ships cursed with greed lightning more often than others. That vessels heavy with stolen gold seemed to glow before a strike, like beacons calling fire down from the sky. Superstition, perhaps. But ask yourself, why did some ships always survive, while others were shattered in an instant? Soft rumble of thunder, distant now. The truth perhaps lies somewhere in between, knowledge, skill and fate tangled together. Because pirates were gamblers, every voyage was a roll of dice with death, and storms were simply one more wager in a life built on chance. Still, those who survived spoke with reverence. They remembered the silence below deck, the hiss of rain on burning rope, the smell of smoke and salt. They remembered clutching the hands of shipmates in darkness, whispering promises to gods they had sworn never to serve. And when lightning struck and they were not taken, they remembered the strange feeling of being spared. Pause. A heartbeat, then a calm but chilling tone. Centuries later, when we read their tales, when we study their tricks of survival, it's easy to forget the truth. They weren't myths, they weren't legends, they were men, flesh and blood, terrified, defiant, desperate men, who fought not just the sea, but the very heavens. So the next time thunder shakes your walls or lightning splits the night sky above your home, remember this. Somewhere, long ago, a pirate stood on a storm-tossed deck, staring up at that same blinding light, whispering a prayer into the chaos and hoping he would live to see the dawn. Her soft, fadey thunder rolls once more, waves hush, silence lingers, and some did, but many never told their tale. Their stories drowned with the storm silence, then a low, distant rumble fading to black.